Cranium, Mysterious Remain Death, Part 3. Chapter 11. What are we doing, Finn? Despite having asked the question, all Bua could see at that moment were the full lips getting closer and closer, so close that it almost made her breathless. Tell me, is this what they call opening your heart? Phinya got even closer, and the space between their lips was almost nothing. Bua, half lying down and half sitting on the sofa in her own living room, felt Finya's left arm gently resting on her back. We are just two people who can't stand each other, Bua murmured, as if she was trying to convince herself. And how can someone who can't stand me want me to stop? There was a moment of silence on Bua's part. No. The answer came, and the tone of her voice was not just a denial, but rather a permission. And then, before Bua could react, she felt Finya's burning and eager lips press against hers, leaving her completely without the strength to resist. They kissed passionately for a long while, as if making up for all the years of rivalry and barbs. When they finally pulled away, both were breathing heavily. I'm not sure what I'm doing. This time, it was Phinya who seemed hesitant, as if for a brief moment she stopped to think about what was happening. Not yet. Bua whispered with a trembling voice. I haven't kissed you back yet. The previous hesitation was broken by those words. This time, Phinya let Bua take the lead, and soon they were lost in each other again. After a long, intimate night together, Phinya fell asleep first, exhausted. Bua lay awake a little longer, staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything that had just happened. She had feelings for Phinya, there was no doubt about that now. Although she didn't know what would happen after that night, something had undeniably changed between them. 5 years of knowing each other, two of them wanting to hit each other over the head with a shovel or exchanging barbs incessantly. Until that moment, Phinya realized that she had wasted all that time. All because of rivalries, of a fight for recognition at work. Now, those things seemed meaningless. Bua was always there, right in front of her. Finn. Bua's deep voice caught her attention again before sleep finally took her. Unbelievably, Phinya had made that night one of the most intense and memorable in Bua's life. The next morning, Dr. Buasaya stood in front of the mirror, putting on her shirt, and noticed that there was another person lying in her bed, someone she had never liked, someone she used to argue with to the point of wanting to hit with a shovel, and who was now sound asleep. This morning felt strange, and Bua still felt the lingering warmth from the night before. Thinking about it, she couldn't help but look at Phinya sleeping, her features calm and serene in a way she had never seen before. The same loud, temperamental Phinya was now more serene than Bua could ever imagine. A hug came from behind, someone who was still half asleep. I still don't like you, Phinya teased softly, pressing her lips to Bua's neck. I know, Bua replied with a small smile. Then why are you in such a hurry? Aren't you going to get some rest? I need to go to the lab. Bua replied in a dry tone, before turning to face Phinya, whose hair was still messy. She couldn't help but raise a finger to smooth her long hair back and then run her hand along the distinct structure of her face. Finn. Bua's voice trembled a little as she called the name, looking at the face in front of her with deep concern. We haven't seen each other for 2 years. Are you okay? I think you look a little thinner. Are you overworked to the point that you can't eat or sleep properly? The question made Phinya bite her lip before meeting Bua's gaze. Suddenly, tears began streaming down her face, and Bua quickly raised her hand to wipe away the tears. Bua. I've actually wanted to ask you this several times, but, well, you know that whenever we start talking, we end up fighting. I think now is the right time to ask. Finya's dark eyes moved from side to side, hesitating. Don't start crying now, Bua said in her small voice, while still using her fingertips to dry the tears under Finya's eyes. You're making me lose my self-confidence, crying after spending the night with me, Phinya. I already told you last night that I'm not very confident with these things. If you're not confident in something, you need to practice more, you know? Finya's voice murmured in the doctor's neck. You say it like it's a joke. These things can't be learned just with theory. The observation made Phinya laugh, before moving away a little. So stay with me a little longer, she said with a pleading tone and look. I want to get to know you better. We've known each other for 3 years. If you count the time you disappeared, 5. We had the same advisor, we studied in the same room, we took exams together, and our lab tables were only a meter apart, but back to back, until you freaked out and disappeared. Now, out of the blue, you want to get to know me better? You won't be able to get to know me today. I have to go get the chimpanzee bones that I got with so much effort from the zoo. Then have dinner with me tonight. Phinya proposed, making Bua raise an eyebrow. Please, Bua. I don't promise anything, because I don't know how long it will take you there. Bua refused, while grabbing a pair of pants to wear. Would you rather be with the chimpanzees than with me? Chimpanzees don't irritate me. The doctor answered quickly. They don't fight, they don't freak out, and they don't cause trouble. But I only did that once. Phinya protested. And that was enough, the trouble you caused was huge. Phinya, you made me be investigated for ethics. I did everything I could to avoid being fired. The words made Phinya back away. Raising her hand in a gesture that resembled a vow, Phinya said. From now on, I'm going to try to behave with you. You're just saying that because we just spent the night together. Bua replied. No. Phinya quickly objected. Trust me. Bua stopped to look at Finya's face for a moment, thoughtful. I'm going now. If you want to talk, we'll talk later. Chapter 12. Phi Bua, I'm just looking for you. Aeon called hurriedly. What's wrong? The doctor replied as she walked down the hallway, distractedly reading the documents about the chimpanzee bones she was waiting to receive. Can you welcome the new researcher in place of the professor for a moment? The professor is on her way, but she's already arrived before. Oh, really? I didn't even know she was going to arrive today. Bua replied in surprise. The professor just called me, it isn't something official. Aeon explained quickly. No problem then. Just hold this for me, please. Bua handed the documents to Aeon, while adjusting her hair, fixing her glasses and straightening the collar of her shirt, preparing to receive the visitor. Bua had known beforehand that a new researcher would arrive this week, but she hadn't expected to be the one to welcome her, since the professor hadn't given any clear instructions about it. It wasn't something official, but leaving the visitor waiting alone in a room definitely didn't seem like a good idea. How do I look? Bua asked as she ran her hands through her hair, trying to tidy it up. Phi Bua is beautiful as always. Today you even seem more cheerful than usual. Aeon replied with a smile. Which room? The small one, the meeting room upstairs. Okay, I'll go. Aeon, please prepare some water and come later, okay? Yes, Phi Bua. Thank you. You're welcome. Buasaya headed to the door of the meeting room, which had been prepared to welcome the important visitor. The Research Institute didn't receive distinguished visitors often, and even less so to collaborate on the work. The institute had been in operation for less than 2 years, and there were days when even the local cemetery seemed busier. The research team consisted of less than 10 graduate students under the supervision of professors, and, counting the rest of the staff, the total number of people was no more than 30. Bua raised her right hand and knocked on the door a few times before entering. Excuse me. She caught sight of the visitor, with her back to her, wearing a black suit. Something about her figure seemed strangely familiar. She was looking through the window at the small canal that ran behind the 11-story building of the institute. At that moment, the visitor turned to her. You. Bua could barely finish the sentence, her eyes widening in surprise. Hello, Dr. Buasaya. The visitor said with a slight smile and tilting her head, as if making a joke. We meet again, don't we? And then she walked over to Bua and hugged her. Phinya leaned against the edge of the table, leaning over and leaving a kiss on Bua's cheek, a familiar touch from the night before, while Bua remained with an expression of astonishment. "How did you end up here?" Bua asked, still being hugged, with Phinya resting her forehead on her shoulder and tightening her embrace around her. "Someone invited me and of course, I came." Phinya murmured softly against Bua's neck. "Tonight, come sleep with me, Wekong." "You're crazy. We're at work, and you invite me to spend the night?" Buasaya exclaimed, raising her hand to hit Finya's arm, which made Phinya let out a loud squeal and pull away. Soon after, she lightly touched Bua's chin with her fingertips and leaned closer. "Bye, Bua." Hearing her nickname, Bua closed her eyes instinctively, as if she was ready to receive the approaching kiss. "Last night. Did I do something that didn't please you?" Phinya whispered when their lips were a breath away. "No." Bua answered briefly, and that made Phinya smile. "You made me feel very good. Let's have dinner together tonight, yes?" Just then, the sound of a knock on the door caused both of them to quickly move away. Professor Nisara, in her usual formal attire, entered the room with an expression of relief. Upon learning from Aeon that Buasaya was receiving the visitor alone in the meeting room, she feared that the two would end up punching each other before she arrived. Bua watched as Phinya bowed respectfully to her former advisor, before running to hug the 50-something professor who had once signed Finya's resignation letter affectionately. The other student, watching the scene, completely confused. "Are you okay, Professor?" Phinya asked, after pulling away from the hug. "How are you?" she asked with a smile. "You're still strong and as beautiful as ever," she replied sweetly. "You and your idle talk, it's no wonder that both women and men fall in love with you, is it, Finn?" "Men? Where did you see that?" "I think they're more women." Phinya turned to look at Bua, whose face and gaze behind her square glasses were still a mix of confusion and disbelief. "Women, for sure." Hearing this, Bua looked away, pretending not to understand. "Thank you for coming," Nisara said, addressing her former student. "I'm your student, Professor. All you have to do is ask, and no matter where I am, I'll always come back." Phinya replied, taking a step back. Bua, on the other hand, just watched the scene through her glasses, absorbing the words in silence. As she watched, Bua's mind wandered, remembering the last time Phinya caused a commotion before resigning. Her former colleague, who was once a close friend, now seemed completely different. In the past, Phinya had always bothered her, believing that Bua was the teacher's protege. Now, however, that didn't seem to matter anymore. "Actually, I should have come back a long time ago," Phinya muttered. "What did the professor say about that?" Nisara asked. "She didn't say anything," Phinya replied before the director of the institute gestured for her to sit down. "Who would dare criticize a student of the Queen of Anthropology like you? As for the report of the 2 years I was away, I will do my best to deliver it as soon as possible. Do it in your own time. We are grateful for your contribution to the institute, Phinya. Thanks to you, we were able to obtain support funds from abroad." "I am happy to help, Professor," Phinya replied calmly. Meanwhile, Bua remained seated, listening to the conversation, without making any comments. "From now on, you will finally stay in the office and let Bua go out into the field for a while." Both the professor and Phinya turned to Bua, who remained motionless, still trying to understand the whole situation. "Maybe I have gotten used to working in the field," Bua said, with a slight smile. "Oh, Professor, I sent my graduation documents here, as you requested." "Perfect," Nisara replied with a nod. "Welcome back, Dr. Phinya." That night, Bua didn't want to go out to dinner with Phinya, but Phinya insisted until she couldn't take it anymore. In fact, she ended up getting tired and went, but the dinner that was on the table had barely been touched. After dinner, They returned to Phinya's place and spent another intimate night together, continuing to explore the new side of their relationship. The next morning, the teasing and banter resumed as usual, but with a softer, more affectionate undertone. Maybe, just maybe, she was starting to fall in love with Dr. Buasaya. Now that we're so open, there's nothing left to hide. Bua commented with an impassive expression. Don't you think? Phinya didn't answer right away. She just lay there, staring at her, while Bua stared at the ceiling. Slowly, Phinya reached out and placed the back of her fingers on Bua's cheek. What's wrong? Bua asked, turning to her. It's strange. I've never seen you like this. It's because you've never really seen me. Bua replied, her voice containing a slight hesitation. You've always chosen to see what you wanted, and I was never in between. It may be true. Phinya admitted hoarsely. But now, maybe that's changed. Bua wasn't sure what Phinya meant, but she didn't try to interpret her words. At least now we're not trying to hit each other over the head with shovels. Bua said, changing the subject and laughing, trying to hide the sudden acceleration of her heart after Phinya's words. Come to think of it, it's funny, don't you think? Before, I thought the professor favored was you, Phinya confessed. She always sent me away, while you stayed comfortable at the institute. In the end, we received the same diploma, but I was exhausted, almost without strength. Did you know I was jealous of you? Bua revealed. Why? I was the student who was stuck at the institute, never going anywhere, afraid of not being able to get by. I never saw anything real, while you had already been to so many places, Bua explained. The experience you had is something that can't be compared to. You? Jealous of me, Bua? Phinya asked as she leaned her face closer to Bua. Before she could answer, Bua held her face with one hand, and Phinya lowered her lips, kissing her passionately. After a brief pause, she returned to the kiss. I finally heard that Dr. Buasaya is jealous of me. I think my life is really worth living. I'm serious. Bua reaffirmed. Soon after, she felt Phinya put a leg over her body and rest her forehead on her shoulder. Bua responded to the gesture by raising her right hand and placing it on the back of Phinya's neck. She slid her hand gently down her spine, which made her let out a soft moan in response. You say you don't have much practice, but you seem to know exactly what to do to please a woman, Walloy. I study the sensory system and movements related to the erect posture of the spine in primates, so I thought it would be useful to apply it here. Otherwise, why would I have studied it? Bua replied, feeling Phinya lower her head and lightly bite her neck. If you want to practice more, just come to me, Walloy. Phinya said. It's not easy to find someone to teach such specific practices, like the spine aligned with the ground. Bua replied in a low tone. Especially when the instructor has. Her fingers slid down Phinya's arm. A physical structure like yours which is hard to find. She then placed her hands on Phinya's hips. What kind of physical structure? Phinya asked with a smile. Considering your hips, which align perfectly with your broad shoulders. Bua paused to think about the best way to continue, and Phinya laughed, realizing exactly what she was talking about. Not counting the 10-20-kilometer walks carrying equipment. Maybe you should thank the professor for providing you with such an attractive structure. Bua teased. I mean, balanced and suitable for perpetuating the species, in the style of the Homo genus. Phinya couldn't handle Bua's words and let out a loud laugh again. You really know how to choose your words so as not to make the conversation sound too suggestive, but honestly, I can't stop thinking about something else. Phinya still had a big smile on her face. And I'm the type who believes easily, so, okay, I'll believe you. You'd be a great case study, you know? Walloy continued. Dr. Bua is always keeping an eye on waistlines, is that it? Don't forget that I'm a physical anthropologist. Walloy retorted. It's kind of automatic. For me to look at the waistline first, Like when we analyze the structure of primates or monkeys and make assumptions about why their populations are decreasing or why some species are extinct. Modern primate females have smaller pelvises that seem less suited to carrying a pregnancy, because of the narrower angle. After looking at the pelvis, the next step is... She hesitated, and her face began to blush slightly. Yeah, well... the breast. Phinya finished, knowing exactly what Bua was thinking. Because it has to do with milk production, right? As mammals, we pay a lot of attention to that area first. Stop being perverted, Phinya, I see this as a case study. Bua argued in a serious tone, frowning, clearly not agreeing with the joke. This made Phinya lean in to nibble affectionately on the tip of Bua's nose. I mean, it's a quick and unpretentious glance, but... I end up getting distracted. She admitted, a little embarrassed. If I see you looking at another woman the same way, I'll get back at you, Waloy. Phinya warned. How absurd, who would look at another person like that? That's invasive. Bua quickly denied. Besides, you're only saying that because you're in bed with me. She added, as if she already knew what the other was thinking. Soon, when you get tired, you'll stop being so possessive, like a territorial animal at the beginning of mating or something. Why do you always turn everything into animal behavior? Humans are primates, they're part of the ecosystem. Bua replied with impeccable logic. I'm starting to go crazy being in bed with a newly graduated woman full of energy like you. So, what do you think about us going to eat something? At dinner, I barely ate anything and then... I used up a lot of energy. I already knew that if I gave in and came with you, I wouldn't be able to eat dinner properly. But at dinner, you were the one who started it all. Phinya replied, trying to defend herself. Really? Bua asked in a carefree tone. I wouldn't even remember that if you hadn't mentioned it. She said as she began to get up from the bed. I'll go find something to eat first. Waloy, how could you abandon me halfway like this? Phinya exclaimed, indignant. Chapter 13. Bua, do you feel uncomfortable with Phinya coming to work here? The question made Buasaya look up at her advisor, who had returned to work after returning from abroad and completing the cooperation documentation. Phinya, in turn, would take on the role of principal researcher at the institute, in addition to being the postgraduate supervising professor. Uncomfortable. Me? Surprise slightly evident in Buasaya's voice. I agree with whatever you decide, Professor. I'll try to keep the research projects separate, then. Each of you does your work, and if you need anything, come talk to me directly. You don't need to go through Phinya. I have no problem with that. Whatever you decide, it's fine with me. She answered calmly. Hearing that makes me feel at ease, said Professor Nisara, smiling with clear relief on her face. So, regarding the position of vice principal, which we discussed before your graduation, have you decided whether you're going to accept it? Vice principal? Bua repeated the question, with a slight hint of hesitation. She had almost forgotten about this offer her advisor had mentioned before her graduation. Advancing so quickly in her career had its benefits, especially considering that she was about to turn 34, 35. If she accepted the position, accumulated teaching hours and published research quickly, she could soon apply for a more prestigious academic position. But, what for? She still wasn't sure what the purpose of it was. She didn't see anything so special about taking the position beyond what she was already doing. More importantly, Bua valued her time off more than anything. Besides you, Bua, I don't see anyone else for the position. The professor argued. Without a doubt, among all the students, Bua's name always came to mind first when it came to such an opportunity. She was the professor's favorite student and trained with dedication, besides, of course, Phinya. You are the most qualified. I had already prepared the documents before I even went to Panama. All that's left is for you to accept. I just graduated. The doctor replied, divided. I don't think it would be appropriate, I still have little experience. I think the professor is forgetting someone. Buasaya paused, observing the confused expression of her advisor. Phinya. The professor's expression indicated surprise at what she had just heard. But Phinya graduated after you. Just a few months. I think Phinya would be more suitable. If you want to attract more attention to this area, I believe Phinya would be a better representative than me, who just stays locked in the laboratory. Besides, she played a bigger role than I did in creating the institute. In fact, I think the professor should have thought of her first. You're exaggerating. At that time, Phinya hadn't decided to come back yet, so I put you as the first option. Replied Nisara, trying to encourage her. You and Phinya have different specialties in prehistoric physical anthropology. I believe you are my first option. As for Phinya, she is more focused on the historical period, said the female advisor. That's how I had planned things. Let Phinya take this position, Professor. It doesn't matter if she graduates earlier or later. And I'm not as good at coordination as she is. I think she's better suited. Bua replied. Are you sure? Yes. Bua's voice was firm and confident. Besides, Phinya just got back. For those who are new or don't know the environment well, it will be easier to respect Phinya as someone you trust. I, on the other hand, already know everyone here, so that's not a problem for me. If you think so, I'll respect your decision, Bua. In that case, you can take over as head of the lab. Lab head? Bua repeated, surprised. She had just avoided one position and already being pushed into another. Is that a good idea? Of course it is. Her advisor replied with conviction. It's decided then. And this time, she didn't wait for Bua to refuse. Okay. Bua said reluctantly. Given her insistence, there was no way around it. She just wanted to be a simple researcher with time to rest every now and then, but currently, her responsibilities were eating up all her free time. Before she could say anything else, there was a knock on the door of the Institute's director's office, followed by Phinya's entrance, who closed the door behind her. Come in, Phinya, said the director. Upon seeing her, Bua stood up. Excuse me, Professor, I'm going. She clasped her hands in a gesture of respect, bowing to the advisor and starting to leave. As she passed Phinya, she felt her colleague approaching, until their hands lightly touched. This made Bua look at her, their eyes meeting through the square lenses of her glasses, which were shining. Embarrassed, Bua quickly lowered her head and in doing so, she stumbled, almost falling over her chair, but quickly adjusted the chair next to the small coffee table near the door. Sorry, Bua said to her advisor, as Phinya moved even closer. I couldn't sleep well last night. Are you okay, Bua? Phinya asked in a whisper, dressed in a smart black suit. I am. Bua replied shortly, and then hurried out of the room. Professor, did you call me for something? Phinya asked as she closed the door behind her. Yes, I have something to talk to you about, the professor replied. Phinya, you're the reason I haven't been sleeping much lately. Bua thought. From now on, if there's any more trouble, you'll be the one to take responsibility. A few minutes later, a knock on the door of the future vice principal's office interrupted Dr. Phinya Thananon's concentration, who was immersed in reading a recently published scientific article. She looked up and called the visitor to come in. It was Professor Nisara, her advisor and now her direct superior, who came in with a brown envelope in her hands. Appointment documents, said the middle-aged woman, placing the envelope in front of Phinya, who stood up and bowed politely. You could have called me up, Professor. My legs are still fine, don't worry. I can still come down and meet you. Nisara said with a smile, which made her former PhD student laugh lightly. Officially welcome, Dr. Phinya. Thank you very much, Professor, Phinya replied with a grateful smile. I'm glad you came back to help us. I thought you would stay there forever, especially with the professor wanting to keep you as long as possible. The advisor said as she sat down, and Phinya did the same in her office chair. No, Professor, Phinya replied, now officially vice principal. I always knew that my home is here. Those words brought a sincere smile to the advisor. It's good to hear that from you, the professor said with an affectionate look. I confess that at first, I thought you would give the position to Bua. Phinya commented, noticing her boss's appraising look for a brief moment. I won't hide anything from you, she said, looking at her former student. I talked to Bua, but she refused. Really? Phinya replied in surprise. Yes. Professor Nisara nodded. Bua said you would be more suitable. That revelation made Phinya smile involuntarily, feeling her face heat up for no apparent reason. But I graduated after her. Phinya argued. She said it doesn't matter. She thinks you represent the institute better and have more capacity to attract new generations to this area. I had no idea Bua thought that way about me. I have no doubts about either of you. You both have always worked hard, and for me, it doesn't matter who holds the position. I trust both of you completely. In fact, you are students of whom I am deeply proud. Those words brought to Phinya's mind something Bua had said when they had met for the first time in 2 years, during dinner. Now, hearing the same thing from her advisor's mouth, Phinya's heart raced. It was exactly as Bua had said. Since Bua sees things that way, I respect her decision, said the advisor. I'm glad to know that she thinks so. We all know that you two had a troubled past. Don't worry, Professor. I don't hold any grudges anymore, assured Phinya. I'm sure Bua doesn't either. In the past, we were just young people competing to stand out in the field, nothing more. You two really stood out, praised the teacher. And now, how are things? For me, these issues are no longer important. Phinya replied sincerely. There are much more important things now. I am relieved to hear that, said the advisor, standing up, and Phinya followed her. Congratulations once again, Phinya. Thank you very much, Professor. She thanked her, bowing with a smile. Then, excuse me. I have to go now. After the advisor left, Phinya went to the institute's secretary. Aeon, where's Phi Bua? Phi Bua is in the laboratory. Today, the master's students are participating in a workshop on how to clean bones that will be exhibited. Okay, said Phinya, placing the coffee on the secretary's desk. I bought coffee and some sweets. I have something for you too. And please keep Bua's in the fridge. Do you need anything urgent, Phi? I can call her for you. No, you don't have to. I just wanted to leave the gifts. Oh, congratulations on the new position. Thank you very much, Phinya said. As soon as things calm down, I'll arrange a celebratory dinner. The secretary smiled and nodded in agreement. Actually, I wanted to discuss something with Phi Phinya, Aeon said, causing Dr. Phinya to raise an eyebrow. What is it? Phinya asked. I plan on applying for a PhD next year. Would it be possible to have you as my co-advisor? Would that be a problem? Have you spoken to Phi Bua about it? Yes, I did a few days ago. She suggested I talk to you to see if you might be interested and mentioned that you might be a better fit for the role. So Phi Bua said that? Phinya asked, and Aeon nodded in response. Phi Bua mentioned that you have more experience, better connections, and perhaps could send me to a field trip to gain practical experience. And also that she is more rigorous, Aeon explained. She said that if I had Phi Bua as my advisor, it might take me more than 5 years to finish, as you don't usually rush your students. So she's trying to pass the work on to me. Phinya thought. How many years do you intend to take to complete it? I'm not in a hurry, I already have a job here, Aeon explained. But also I don't want to take too long. 7, 8 years would be too much. Then send me a study plan for review. Phinya said in a serious tone, lifting her coffee for a sip. Specify how many years you intend to take to complete it, the type of research you want to do, if you intend to go to the field or to which country. I'll check if there are any vacancies available for you with my colleagues. And if you're thinking about doing a postdoctorate, include that as well. Of course. But I'm thinking about doing the postdoctorate right here. Aeon replied. Do you have any suggestions of a field where I could go? She asked. Phinya seemed thoughtful. If you go to desert areas, you'll have to walk long distances, or if you go to burial areas, you might face a lot of bandits. If you really want to go, it's good to prepare your body and learn how to defend yourself or even use weapons. Bandits? Aeon asked, curious. Do you know how much a well-preserved mummified body of a nobleman is worth? Not to mention the adornments or treasures that may be inside. Phinya explained. Aeon's eyes widened, and her face showed surprise. There are more rich people obsessed with these things than you can imagine. Why would anyone keep bodies at home? Aeon asked, perplexed. To bring good luck and prosperity. It's a belief from ancient times, said the new vice principal. But to make things even more macabre, some people used these bodies to make medicines. Aeon's expression was one of disgust when she heard this. I'm serious. Phinya confirmed. But I recommend that if you are interested in primate behavior, evolution, or anatomical structure of the genus Homo and prehistoric humans related to adaptation or migration for survival, Bua is more specialized in these subjects. I'm more in the historical field. Even though I work in ancient anthropology, I'm not as specialized in prehistory or extinct ancestral species as Bua. Phinya suggested. Bua must be a species of Homo erectus or reincarnated Neanderthal, Phinya joked, and Aeon laughed lightly at the joke. Think about it. Okay, Aeon said. When you decide, write a plan and send it to me. I'm willing to be your co-advisor. Now, I have to go. Phinya said before leaving. Yes, thank you very much. Aeon replied, nodding before walking away. However, less than 5 minutes later, Buasaya walked in through the opposite door. Bua, Phinya was looking for you just now, Aeon informed. Oh, really? I was about to borrow your phone to call her, Bua replied. Is there a problem? Aeon asked, noticing Bua's worried expression, who had already picked up the phone and started dialing before waiting for the call to be answered. /Dr. Phinya, please come to the lab on the 3rd floor. There was a problem with the equipment. Bua hung up after that. Here's the coffee Phinya brought for you, she said, holding out the coffee cup. Buasaya frowned as she looked at the cup of coffee Aeon offered her. What could have put Phinya in such a good mood today? Buasaya asked, bringing the coffee cup to her lips. The bitter taste seemed to bring a sense of freshness. I'm going to leave now. I have urgent work. When she gets here, ask her to come after me. Thank you. Chapter 14. Finn, come down to the lab on the 3rd floor, I need help. The voice on the other end of the line on the office phone made Finya's heart race. There's something about the plane crash case. 5 minutes later, Dr. Phinya appeared in front of the main lab of the Bioanthropology Research Institute. She walked in and saw Bua, dressed in a long white lab coat with blue gloves, standing with her hands on her hips in front of a 65-inch screen. The screen was connected to a 20-fold magnification camera and high-intensity lights. Bua stared at the screen, her eyebrows furrowed in concentration. What's wrong, Bua? Phinya asked, stopping near a stainless steel table, where part of a rib cage was exposed. Bua pointed to the television screen. Look at this, what do you think of these marks? Phinya looked at the monitor and saw a sharp mark on the plane crash victim's 5th left rib. This mark is recent. Have they identified this person yet? Not yet. But I found this and called you to take a look first. Are there any other marks elsewhere? Not yet. Bua replied. What do you think of these marks? I'm not sure. Phinya said. From the shape of the cut, I don't think it's a bladed weapon. The mark is too wide and rounded. If it were a blade piercing, the cut would be narrow, like a slit or triangular. But this mark... A bullet. Bua interrupted. Could it be that? It's possible. Phinya replied. Considering the effect of the bullet's spin when it hits the bone, it could cause an injury with this type of cut. Or any object long and rounded enough to penetrate and cause damage. In that case, it would have to be used with considerable force. Do you think this happened before or after the accident? Phinya didn't answer right away. She just moved to adjust the camera's zoom, magnifying the image 40 times, examining the mark more closely. It's hard to say, but the mark is recent. If it happened before or after the accident, it was in a short space of time. There are no signs of healing, and even though it's rounded, the injury is still very clear. I knew something was wrong with this case. Bua exclaimed. A plane crash victim with a bone injury caused by a weapon? The more we investigate, the stranger it gets. She looked at the screen for a moment before picking up the camera and taking photos to send to the forensics team. None of this is normal since this skull appeared on the scene. Phinya agreed. By the way, how is the dating process going? I called yesterday. They said there are still 2 cases left in the queue. They'll probably start the analysis next week. Bua replied. Right. Phinya replied. And about the skull X-rays you mentioned, have you gotten them yet? I did, but I haven't opened the email yet. I'll open it later and send it to you. Since I'm here, I can help. Phinya offered. Thank you, Dr. Finn, you're always so kind. Bua replied, causing Phinya to tilt her head slightly, which she followed with a soft smile. I'm kind to everyone. But with you, of course I always want something in return. Phinya said with a mischievous tone. How cruel. Bua immediately retorted. If you want me to stay nice, come to my room tonight. Phinya whispered, leaving Bua uneasy, quickly looking around to see if anyone had heard. Please, I just want to sleep. Bua replied in a soft, almost pleading voice, which made Finya's heart race. Please. Don't think I'll give in so easily, but I'll take pity on you. Dr. Finn, you're always so kind. Bua joked again. If you say that again, I'll stick an L1, first lumbar vertebra, down your throat. Phinya threatened, laughing, as she reached out to grab the bone, but Bua was faster and took it out of her reach. Bring the list of victims so I can take a look. Go get it, it's on my desk. Bua said, nodding to the desk in her office, which was in the next room, separated by a large glass window. Phinya gave her a disapproving look before going to get the papers. When she came back, Bua asked, Are you looking for something in particular? I don't know for sure. Most of the information says that almost all of the victims worked in private businesses. Phinya replied, frowning as she thought. They probably rented a private plane to travel and discuss business at the same time. Do you recognize anyone's name? Bua asked, still focused on photographing the bone in front of her. How would I recognize anyone? I don't watch the news. Phinya replied. I'm just curious about how one of these individuals managed to own a mummified skull. Some of them probably have strange beliefs. Bua agreed. Actually, I have a hypothesis, but I prefer not to jump to conclusions. It's better to follow the evidence to avoid any assumptions interfering with the work. I think the same as you, Waloy. And how do you know what I'm thinking? Bua teased, making Phinya look up at her, while still focusing on the bones in front of her. Having strange things like that in someone's possession is already weird, but it's even weirder for them to end up in the wreckage of a plane. The anthropologist working on the case is also weird. Phinya joked back. You're so normal, aren't you? Bua immediately retorted. Hey, Finn. What do you think this has to do with? Bua lowered her voice, almost whispering. Some mummy curse or something? Like, could the Book of the Dead have a curse or something like that? Why are you whispering? You know that even if you speak softly, ghosts can hear, right? Do you think this has something to do with mummy curses? Bua repeated in a normal voice. How many mummy movies have you watched? Not many, I usually sleep more than watch. Phinya let out a long sigh, clearly mocking, while Bua laughed. I know that, you sleep with me. You have class this afternoon, right? First class since you got back, right? Bua quickly changed the subject after the provocation. Yes. Phinya replied calmly. About the spine and extremities of mammals. I borrowed the bone from a chimpanzee. Bua, who was now the head of the lab, nodded in approval. You borrowed it and you're only telling me now? She replied, giving her a sideways look, mocking her again. You can take it, Dr. Phinya, feel free. Oh, can I watch your class? I'd like to review some concepts. I can review it with you personally, Buekong. Any part you want. Better leave it alone. Bua replied hurriedly, declining the offer. If you have so much free time, I'll ask the professor to find you some work. Phinya said, watching Bua as she picked up the radius, forearm bone, and began measuring and photographing the bone. So, do you think this has to do with a curse or something? Bua returned to the question curiously. I heard that some archaeologists opened the tomb of a pharaoh, but there was a curse warning them not to disturb his eternal rest, so one by one, they started dying mysteriously, out of nowhere. We still don't know who the skull we found is or where it came from, Phinya observed. To be honest, considering the skull, it doesn't even look like someone from that region. If we're assuming it's Egyptian, the truth is that the ancient Egyptians were a very diverse ethnic group, both in the north and south. Most had mixed ancestry of African, European, and even Middle Eastern. But the mummified skull we found has a rounder face, a narrower lower jaw, and the brow ridges are not as prominent as theirs. The forehead is also narrower. I am more inclined to think it is Asian. Asian? Bua repeated, intrigued. Phinya just nodded briefly. Ancient Egyptians cannot be categorized ethnically in the same way we do today. Phinya explained. There were many mixtures of races. Some regions had light skin, others were darker or tanned, and many people were mixed race. So, when we look, there is a very large morphological diversity. It is not possible to classify as clearly as we do today. At first, I was skeptical. Bua commented. But now I agree with the hypothesis that it was Asian. The doctor continued. When I first saw the skull at the accident site, the upper and lower jaw, the cheekbones, and the shape of the teeth, both in condition and size, reminded me of when I helped excavate a cemetery. But then, I saw the papyrus. I thought it could be something acquired at auction or in trade, since I heard that the sale of mummies is something that still happens. Yes, it still happens, but less frequently, and clandestinely, because it is illegal. Phinya commented, providing more details. That is why these relics are difficult to find, and newly discovered tombs are often looted because of this. I heard something about this about 5 or 6 months ago, that a tomb had been looted. But, Phinya. Bua spoke as if something had just occurred to her. What if the skull is not from an Egyptian mummy, but from someone from here? It's possible, but remember what you said, that it seems to have been modified? Phinya observed. What if it was modified by someone from here? We can't draw that conclusion without knowing for sure how old the skull is or finding more concrete evidence about the facial features. I'll call to speed up the test results. Bua said excitedly. Oh, I almost forgot. Phinya commented, as if she had just remembered something. When is Fong coming back? Maybe she can help us with this case. Referring to a colleague from the doctorate who was doing research in bioanthropology in the Netherlands. Fong was a close friend of Bua and also quite close to Phinya. Probably in a week or two. She said she was already looking at the tickets to come back. When does she finish her doctorate, anyway? She mentioned in passing that it would be next year, after publishing another article, when she would ask to do the final defense. That's great, that way she can help out. Phinya said. Oh, but she's still not sure if that's what she wants to do. Bua replied. After 5 years of studying, she's still not sure? Don't you think it's a little late for that? She teased. At her age, she's still thinking about changing careers? If her heart isn't in it anymore, what's the point? She won't be happy. Bua commented. You're right. Phinya nodded without looking up from the documents. Why haven't we gotten any information about the victims? Because the company didn't want to provide it, they don't even want to give a statement. They're afraid of tarnishing their reputation. Explained Bua, who was crouched down in front of the autopsy table. Another possibility is that they rented the plane for something illegal and that's why they're not saying anything. Phinya suggested. Oh, I need to call the police and send them the photos of the mark left by the brooch to see if they need any more information. Bua said, offering. You can leave that up to you. Phinya replied, in an almost authoritative tone. Of course. Bua promptly retorted. Dr. Phinya just walks around the place acting all elegant and hot and then leaves. I already know how it is. I look beautiful just by standing still and existing, don't I? Phinya replied, making Bua frown immediately. Am I wrong? I won't even comment. Bua replied in a mocking tone. You should know that better than anyone, don't you, Buekong? Phinya winked at her. Or am I wrong? If you're that beautiful and have nothing else to do. Bua sighed dramatically when she saw Phinya raise her chin, proud of herself. Come and help me work. Chapter 15. All right, everyone is here, right? The advisor's voice echoed around the room as she watched that it was time to start the monthly meeting at the beginning of the month. Dr. Nisara, currently in the position of an associate professor and director of the Institute for Research in Bioanthropology, took her place in front of the rectangular table of the meeting room. The institute had been founded about a year ago with support from both the public and private sector, as well as collaborations with several universities. It was the first institute of the region focused on concrete research in the area of anthropology and other related disciplines. The institute also offered postgraduate programs for master and doctorate. The veteran professor in the room swept her look at the researchers present, most of whom had already been her postgraduate students. With a slight smile, she surveyed the 26 participants of the meeting, which included both researchers and other team members in various functions. At the Research Institute, the meeting continued. Today, I would like to officially introduce the new vice principal of the institute. Professor announced before giving a light nod towards the person who was sitting on her left. Next to Phinya was Aeon, the institute's secretary, and alongside Aeon was Bua. Phinya, wearing a light collar shirt under a black suit combining with pants of the same color, got up and made a gesture of greeting with her hands. Sawadee ka, it is a pleasure to meet all. Dr. Phinya Thananon will officially start her work here from this week. Continued the director of institute. But I believe many of you already know her. In addition to the position of deputy director, Dr. Phinya will also be the main researcher and teacher of graduate students. If anyone has not yet chosen a co-advisor, you can talk directly to Phinya. The meeting participants nodded almost in unison, and soon some began to exchange looks with each other. Those who had been doctoral students at the same time, or with a difference of up to 3 years, certainly knew the complicated past between Phinya and Buasaya. All they were aware that there was a tense history between the two, and suddenly Bua, who had always been considered the favorite by many, saw her position be taken in front of everyone. no doubt something interesting was coming. The looks of some colleagues and alumni who knew the story well between the two turned to Buasaya, who was leaning in her chair, looking a little sleepy, as if they expected some kind of dissatisfaction reaction from her. Even Phinya watched her friend and rival carefully. However, Bua just remained there, with her head down, ignoring the eyes around her. She focused on keeping her spine straight, holding a cup with her right hand, and kept holding her coffee all the time. After all, what no one knew was that Bua herself had been responsible for putting the position of deputy director in the hands of Phinya. At least, people would finally stop saying that she was the favorite of the professor, which for Bua was extremely annoying. Phinya was more competent than her, had more experience, was more presentable and better represented the institute. Bua could not deny these truths. In addition, she herself had little experience and would not be able to deal with the workload or such an important position. She had graduated in the doctorate less than a year ago. Although Phinya had just graduated, her field skills were incomparable, they were simply not at the same level. Another important reason was that Bua did not want the responsibility of being a director. Currently, she was involved in 2 government-funded research projects, with more on the way. Not to mention that she had, occasionally, to teach physical anthropology and basic anatomy classes for master and doctoral students. And besides all this, there was the work of identifying the victims of the plane crash, which was still far from completed. She had delegated part of this work to Phinya as a way to compensate for the ethical investigation that Phinya had faced after accusing her of plagiarizing her research topic, which had delayed Bua's graduation in almost a year. In fact, she was seeking all the possible reasons to justify herself for giving the position to Phinya. She was convinced that her decision had nothing to do with her recent physical attractiveness or anything else. It wasn't like she was so delighted by Phinya. She had simply decided to give the position to someone who was truly more competent. She swore that her feelings for Phinya were nothing more than bedmates. In addition, Dr. Buasaya will also be responsible for the position of principal researcher, as well as head of the laboratory. If anyone needs to use the physics laboratory, they must notify her in advance. The professor's voice reached Bua's ears, who, still sleepy, nodded her head. The meeting continued, while Bua, exhausted from a bad night's sleep, tried to stay awake. The night before, she had spent hours preparing lesson plans and working out the details of the research project that Professor Nisara had just secured funding for. It was her first project at the institute, and that day she still had to discuss with the sales representative the scientific equipment that would be purchased for this project. Just thinking about the amount of tasks she would have to face every day made her head start to throb. So she let Phinya take on other responsibilities. She needed some time to breathe and regroup. An hour and 47 minutes later, Dr. Buasaya practically dragged herself out of the conference room, an empty coffee cup in her hand. It was her second coffee of the day. Her laptop was propped up in her other arm. "Bua, are you okay?" Fong, who had just returned from the Netherlands after her research, asked as she walked beside her. Fong was a young woman of the same age as Bua and Phinya, petite, with short hair and a slightly lighter skin tone than Bua's. She was a biomolecule specialist, the most experienced in this field in the entire institute. Fong's work mainly involved the study of human genetic sequence, especially historical periods, to identify trends and analyze the migration and settlement of peoples. In simple terms, she was looking if people from different countries could actually be genetically related. "I come back after a week and I am greeted with such a surprise," Fong commented with her serious voice. "It's okay," Bua responded with a sharp tone of voice, unintentionally, still sleepy from the tiredness and cold of the air conditioning in the meeting room. "Everything is okay. I will buy you lunch to compensate," said Fong. "Compensate? Compensate for what?" "For Phinya getting the position." "And why would I need comfort for that? I saw you quiet the whole meeting." "I'm just sleepy, Fong, very sleepy. If I lie down now, I'll fall asleep." "Is there ever a time that you are not sleepy, Bua?" Dr. Bua, please follow me to the room. Phinya said, passing by the two as she spoke. Yes, of course. Bua replied, dragging her words, exhausted, before exchanging glances with her colleague and following Phinya. What's wrong? Buasaya asked as she threw herself into a chair, watching Phinya close the door and sit in her large work chair. I saw the X-rays of the mummy's skull that you sent me. And what did you think? Not good, I'd say. She said, a worried expression on her face. It's not as old as we thought. The bones show no signs of erosion or deterioration, at least on X-rays. If it were anything very old, there would be evidence of wear and tear, and the interior would be full of air cavities where the bone mass has degraded. But that's not the case. It's in a surprisingly well-preserved state. I'd say the person died relatively recently. Bua, hearing this, just bit her lips before asking. And what do you think we should do now? Bua asked. Wait for the results of the dating tests to confirm this hypothesis first. Okay. Bua replied calmly. In the meantime, let's leave this issue aside until the final results. We have other more urgent work to do. Deal, boss. Bua said, nodding, getting up to go back to work. Bye Bua. Phinya called, making Bua raise her eyebrows. What is it? I heard you talking to Fong just now. And the professor mentioned that you were the one who suggested that I take over as vice principal. So what? Do you have a problem with that? Because I'm telling you right now that I'm not going to change my mind. Bua replied quickly. I just want to thank you. I never knew you trusted me so much. You are better than me. Bua replied simply. I cannot deny that. But if I were your boss, would you really obey my orders? Bua, you must have noticed that lately I've been more, how can I say, willing to make it up to you and compromise, right? Phinya said, trying to argue. That's only in bed, Finn. Bua replied with an air of knowledge. But at work, it's different. Anyway, I have to admit that you have more experience than me and deal with situations better. Just look at what happened on the day of the accident scene. I never thought so, Bua, but then, consider this as compensation on my part. Compensation? For what? You're the one who got the position at the institute. I mean, because I almost broke your head once. I'm still upset that you were able to divert. And also for the time when, unintentionally, I chose a research topic similar to yours. And of course, for when I threw the shovel at you, back in Ayutthaya. So that day, did you do it on purpose? Of course not. Phinya answered quickly, in a loud tone, denying. Let's consider that I've already made it up to you for that, and, well, there are several other things too, if we're going to talk about it. She concluded with a somewhat forced smile, which was soon followed by a soft smile on Bua's face. Phinya then stood up and approached, stopping in front of her. With a gentle gesture, she ran the back of her hand over Bua's face, caressing it lightly, while her eyes shone charmingly. Let's have dinner together tonight. When you start saying tonight, it never ends with just dinner. Bua replied with a slight provocation. So let's have dinner tonight. Okay, if I can finish reviewing the cooperation plan with the university in Panama. The professor is putting a lot of pressure on me. She wants the document ready in 2 or 3 days. Unless you want to help me with that. You can send it to me, send it to my email. Phinya replied promptly. Go there and finish the job, at night, I'll come down to meet you. Deal. Bua took a step back, but was stopped when Phinya grabbed her arm and gently kissed her cheek. Finn. Just a little bit more, Phinya said, repeating the gesture. Oh, one more thing, I almost forgot. Said Bua, whose face was already starting to get slightly flushed, as if she had remembered something important. There are still 7 bodies brought from the plane crash that we haven't identified. And why are you telling me this? Phinya asked, curious. Dr. Phinya, do you happen to have an hour or two free? Bua asked with a touch of irony, making Phinya laugh. I have the student lab manual to finish, as well as a meeting with the equipment sales representative today. For you, Bua, all you have to do is ask, and I'll give you all my time, the whole day and night if you need it. Today alone is enough. 7 bodies. If my boss would be so kind as to take a graceful walk into the lab and look at the victims' bodies, separate the bones, take pictures, measure and input the data into the program and write the report. Phinya, with a playful smile, replied. Leave it to me, I'll go down and take a fancy walk around there. Actually, I didn't want to bother you. Bua smiled broadly when she heard Finya's answer. But, thank you very much. Dr. Phinya is always so kind and charming. She said jokingly. You have to be careful not to fall for Dr. Finya's charm. You've been back for a while, have you managed to win anyone over? Not that I want to know, I'm just asking for the sake of asking. Bua teased, trying not to seem genuinely curious. I sincerely hope that this charm you mention is enough to conquer someone here. Phinya responded with a subtle smile. Ah, another thing. Bua quickly changed the subject, seeming to not forget what she needed to say. I already warned the police about the marks we found in the ribs. They will send an agent to review and attend the meeting to discuss the progress of the case. Yeah, you really are the boss in the lab. When the agent arrives, please let me know. I want to attend the meeting too. Agree. I will get on with what I need to do. Wait, Bua. Phinya called her, approaching before stealing a kiss on Bua's lips. Without hesitation, Bua returned the gesture naturally. I'm going down to make my fancy walk now. Phinya whispered as she pulled her face away, leaving only the space of a breath between them. And the rest I solve everything at once tonight. She whispered again, before planting a kiss on the neck of Bua, making the heat of Finya's breathing cause a shiver on her skin, while Bua slightly leaned her head, trying to dodge. This includes the part where you put me as a coordinator of Aeon. She was very lucky to get someone as talented as you to mentor her. Bua said with a hoarse voice. You are really good at finding justifications for everything, aren't you, Dr. Bua? Phinya answered, joking, while wearing her fingertips to straighten her glasses on top of her nose. Then she leaned in to give her a soft kiss on her cheek. I wanted to solve everything right now. She whispered in Bua's ear before watching with a smile as she quickly left the room, visibly disconcerted. Part 3 End, to be continued. Thank you for spending your time with us. New videos every day at 9 p.m. Don't forget to like and subscribe for the newest videos. See ya!